Remember Airbnb, the home-sharing platform that took the world by storm? Well, it's not what it used to be. And in this video, we're gonna tell you why. Airbnb has seen better days. In 2020, they hit rock bottom when their IPO valued them at $47 billion. But even though they've recovered since then, they're still nowhere near their peak valuation of $86 billion. And with a recent string of bad press, many people are wondering if Airbnb is still worth it. So let's find out. Taking a look back, the company was founded in 2008 by three guys named Joe Gebbia, Brian Chesky, and Nathan Blechachik. At the time, they were all working in San Francisco and had a hard time paying rent. So they decided to rent out an air mattress in their living room. Little did they know that this simple idea would turn into one of the biggest hospitality companies in the world. Their first listing was a major success, but it wasn't smooth sailing from there. They got sued by their landlord, struggled to gain traction, and barely had enough money to pay their employees. But everything changed when they got an influx of $700,000 from an investor named A16Z. This allowed them to focus on marketing and growing the business instead of worrying about money. And before long, they became one of the fastest growing startups in history. In fact, things were going so well that they started expanding internationally. By 2017, they had over 6 million active listings and were available in over 190 countries. Everything seemed great on the surface, but behind the scenes, they were having a bunch of problems. For starters, they had a terrible rep with the locals. People hated Airbnb because they were taking entire apartments off the market and turning them into hotels. This caused housing prices to skyrocket in many cities and made it harder for locals to find a place to live. As a result, many cities started passing laws to limit Airbnb's growth, which obviously hurt the business. But that wasn't their only problem. They also had a major issue with fraud. Between 2017 and 2018, Airbnb had over 17,000 fake reviews, 38,000 fake listings, and 23,000 fake messages. To make matters worse, their actual listings were getting destroyed. There were all sorts of horror stories coming out of Airbnb. Parties gone wrong, guests getting arrested, and even deaths. These stories made headlines all around the world and gave Airbnb a horrible reputation. So how did they fix these problems? Well, they tried everything they could think of. They hired thousands of employees to monitor listings, cracked down on fake reviews, and even created a special task force to deal with dangerous parties. But nothing really worked. They were constantly dealing with bad press, and it seemed like they'd never recover. But then, something unexpected happened. The pandemic came along and saved them. When the pandemic hit, people stopped traveling, and all the major airlines lowered their prices to zero. With flights being so cheap, it made more sense to just stay in a hotel. And that's exactly what happened. Airbnb's revenue plummeted, and they had to lay off 19% of their workforce. But once the lockdowns were lifted, everyone wanted to travel again. But this time they wanted to do it in a safe way. And that's where Airbnb came back in clutch. Their bookings started to skyrocket, and by 2022, they were back to pre-pandemic levels. Since then, they've been trying to expand into new markets and rebrand themselves. For example, they recently acquired a company called Hotel Tonight for $500 million. This will allow them to compete with traditional hotels, which is a huge opportunity. But despite all their efforts, Airbnb isn't nearly as popular as it once was. A few months ago, a Wall Street analyst came out and said that Airbnb is in trouble because millennials are growing up and no longer want to stay in random people's houses. They prefer the luxury of a hotel or the affordability of a hostel. On top of that, people are simply not traveling as much anymore. With inflation and recession fears, people are tightening their spending and cutting back on travel. And when they do travel, they prefer to spend more time experiencing new places and less time worrying about where they're staying. So is Airbnb still worth it? Well, it all depends on your priorities. If you're looking for the best bang for your buck, then Airbnb is a great option. But if you're looking for a hassle-free experience, then you might want to go with a hotel or hostel instead. Do you guys agree? Do you think Airbnb is still worth it? Comment that down below. Also drop a like if you're still open-minded about trying Airbnb. And of course, consider checking out our international channels to watch our videos in other languages. And consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'll see you guys on the next one.